Welcome back to another one of my videos. In today's video, we're going to be making this chocolate raspberry sponge roll. Now the first thing we need to make is our sponge cake. So for that, you're going to need 3 room temperature eggs, 75 grams of sugar with a good pinch of salt, 1 package of vanilla sugar or just a good splash of vanilla extract, 75 grams of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 25 grams of cocoa powder. Now, like always, we're going to whisk together our eggs, sugar, salt, and vanilla until super light and fluffy and doubled in size. And in the meantime, we can already sieve together our dry ingredients. And again, I have made a whole video on how I make my sponge cake with some tips and tricks as well. So if you want to watch that, you can watch it up there as well. Now that our eggs are super fluffy, we can fold in our dry ingredients. Now I like sieving it over one more time just to make sure it's super fluffy and it's not weighing down our egg mixture. This is going to go into the oven that's been preheated to 180 degrees Celsius or 306 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. Now, in order to roll up our sponge cake without it cracking, we need to roll it up while it's still warm. So I'm going to start by just sprinkling a little bit of sugar onto a kitchen towel. And the sugar is just going to help catch any of that extra moisture. Now all we have to do is roll it up from the short end to the other short end, and you can fold in the kitchen towel, that way the inside's not going to stick to each other, and you also don't want to roll it too tight because else it might crack when you unroll it. Now before we move on, we have to wait for this to cool down completely. While the sponge cake is cooling, we can already make the chocolate shards, which we're going to use to decorate our cake. So for that, you're going to need 150 grams of dark chocolate and about 1 teaspoon of coconut oil. Now, as always, we're going to use a water bath. So for that, you're going to need yourself 1 bowl that can go over a pot, and your pot just needs a little splash of water. Now you want to make sure that the water doesn't touch the bottom of your bowl, and you also don't want the water to boil. You just want it to be on medium-low heat. You just want the steam to kind of melt your chocolate because else your chocolate's going to be heated up too much. Now I'm going to add like 2/3 of my chocolate with the coconut oil. That's a lot. Once this has completely melted over our water bath, we're going to take it off the heat and we're going to simply just stir in our leftover chocolate, and that's just going to help bring down the chocolate temperature and give us a nice crack. Now that our chocolate is ready to go, we're going to evenly spread it onto one of our pieces of parchment. Now I recommend trying to leave a bit of a space on all the edges. It'll just make it a lot easier and not as messy. Now we're going to carefully press on our second piece of parchment paper, and you want to make sure that you're not getting too many air bubbles in there. Just kind of smooth it out a little bit to make sure that they're sticking together. Now, just like we did with our sponge cake, we're going to carefully roll this up. Now we just need to wait for the chocolate to set completely. And then once we're ready, we can unroll it. And as we unroll it, it's going to break into these nice little shards. At least, ideally, that's what's going to happen. So the filling is super easy. It's essentially just whipped cream and some fresh raspberries. So for that, I'm using 300 milliliters of heavy whipping cream, 15 grams of sugar, 1 package of vanilla sugar, but you can use vanilla extract instead, and 1 package of raspberries that I've already washed and dried off. This just happens to be 165 grams of raspberries if you're trying to be exact. Now we can set our raspberries aside for now until we're ready to assemble, and in the meantime we can really quickly just whip up our cream. Alrighty, our sponge cake is cooled off, our chocolate is still setting, and our filling is ready. So at this point, we can gently unroll our sponge cake, and hopefully there will be no cracks and it won't break into numerous pieces. Okay. I had very little faith, so I'm very pleasantly surprised. Okay. Now at this point, we can slather our sponge cake with our whipped cream. Now, 1, don't make your whipped cream layer too thick because else it'll just squeeze out on all the edges. And 2, I recommend leaving a bit of a gap just on the edge here because as you roll it up, all your whipped cream is going to be pushed towards the edge anyways, and that way it's just a little less messy and it just makes it easier to close it. also slightly pressed in the raspberries into our whipped cream. That way they're just going to have a little bit more of a glue and they're not going to roll everywhere once I try to roll this up. That being said, it is time to roll this baby up. So we're going to start on this side again and roll our way over to the other side. And just don't roll it too tight because else your filling is going to squeeze out everywhere. So just be very gentle with it. Now I also recommend just rolling it up into your towel one more time. That way there's no way that this is going to unravel while we let it cool. And we're going to let this cool for about an hour. You basically just want everything to set and get nice and cold before we start decorating it. Now I already went ahead and whipped up an additional 150 milliliters of whipping cream, and we're just going to use that to cover our cake, and that's just going to act as a glue for our chocolate shards. Now we can very gently unroll our chocolate and then stick it onto our cake. So that's going to be everything for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, you can give it a thumbs up or write me a comment down below. And as always, the whole recipe is going to be in the description box as well.